really is consumer driving the value of the product.
Yep, that's interesting. Very good explanation. Now I wanted to segue into this topic. I actually wanted to bring you on regarding this topic. I think you messaged me a few weeks ago when I was talking about liquidity and I was talking about price tools, market data tools, etc. And I saw some of your videos from last year. I didn't see them at that point, but I saw them now, and I'm like, wow, you were on a tear. Those are some nice videos. So, and I asked you this before. So, why don't you like card ladder? If you want to answer that, I know it's an open-ended question.
Yeah, so I mean, it's so funny you say that because again, a lot of people do associate me with, hey, Ziggy doesn't like card ladder. Hold on a second, my dogs are arguing.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I'll tell you, here's a funny story. I actually started off as a good friend of Chris. I was a fan of his when he ran House of Jordan back in 2019, 2020. I was also a beta user of Card Ladder early on in June when it was released. One of the first users of it. My biggest criticisms have been, okay, so I will always call anything I see as I see it. Like, that's what I really like about your channel. You call stuff out, right? You're not BSing it. When Card Ladder first launched, I remember Chris actually called it a compliment to the market movers tool out there. Now, this is not really, I don't really care, but he was positioning this in a totally different space. But what he positioned it as, there were two things that I thought were interesting to me. He kept referencing the market cap and he kept having a predictive value. And it was two things that I was very critical of in the beginning. He had a card ladder scoring system as well very early on. And based on a card's sale or whatever, it would affect where the card was on the ladder. And I'll give you a perfect example. I think it was July of 2020, and TJ Warren had a game where he went off. And the next morning, the #1 card on Card Ladder is like TJ Warren's Prism Rookie. And I made some comment in the Discord about this is wrong about the predictive analysis. You're misleading people. You basically just announced the entire people in the hobby go out and buy TJ Warren. What that really means to me is go sell my TJ Warren, right? So I put some things in Discord. I was very critical of it. Long story short, I ended up being kind of booted out. I was ignored by Chris. Chris is just, after that, Chris went after me on a couple other websites, on a couple of channels. We've just kind of back and forth. I did some investigation in Chris, looking at what he's done in the past. Chris and Josh started a class on how to sell sports cards, I think back in 2018, 2019, that they're running, where Chris was the reference of how great that the class was, and Josh was selling the class. Then they started selling a newsletter where they were selling picks, which again, I don't care. A lot of people were doing this in 2018, 2019, right? But when I investigated this after kind of Chris, kicked me out of Card Ladder and made some disparaging comments about me, I kind of brought this to people's light. I should also point out what led to that. If you do use Card Ladder, he has a feed where he highlights the content creators he likes, right? And I actually used to be in there, and then I got booted out. And the reason I got booted out was because I also was doing videos for market movers and for Card Ladder, and Josh did not like that. And Chris told me that. He goes, hey, Josh doesn't like you doing that. Anyway, when I did some research on these guys, I kind of would start pointing a light on the hypocrisy of what they were doing, that they are providing a data tool. They're arguing that they were collectors. They're pitching this market cap, nonsense. And at the same time, they're running a how-to class and selling picks. And I saw that as a conflict of interest that no one at this time in 2020 was willing to call out. In fact, I think the biggest thing came in 2021, and in Dallas, Dr. Beckett actually held a content creators breakaway session where he called out some of the misbehavior in the hobby with the content creators, right? That they need to be more respectful. They need to think about what they're doing for the hobby, the future, And I was very critical of the fact that Chris and Josh were both in that room and did nothing, said nothing. And they were guilty of a lot of things that was being called out. Again, selling the picks and selling these how-to classes. So I've always been critical of them. I also, like I said, as you move forward now, where you see this correction in the hobby, the whole market cap thing is complete nonsense. There is no market cap on a sports card. You know what I'm saying? Because you and I could decide to sell a card right now. I could sell a Luka Prism PSA 10 for $100. Does that change the entire market cap of every Luka is now $100? No, it does not. We could, it's asinine, but it's used by people who want to sound intelligent to then manipulate you into doing something that's probably not in your best interest. And that concerns me.
Yeah, I mean, I believe one of the guys took like an indirect shot at me before, or I think a couple of times. But you know, it happens when you're, you know, putting yourself out there, so that's supposed to be expected. But you sent me this clip when Jeremy Lee, I believe that's his name, Sports Card Live, another
Yeah.
guy I know you don't you're not on good terms with, but and then I saw like the dude was talking about, you know, people need to be educated about like the Austrian business school, you know,
Yeah.
it's the type of economics I talked about. And that's how I determined, you know, this whole house of cards would be crashing, you know, sports card crash. And, you know, if a smart guy like him is talking about the Austrian school, which, you know, should be talking about bubbles, asset bubbles, then why didn't he say anything last year? You know, assuming, you know, he didn't say anything. And I don't think he did because there was a video about bubbles that were done. So
Well,
I don't,
I'll put it simply. It's not, you have to understand, Chris is a very intelligent person. Okay.
yeah.
He's not talking about the Austrian school. He's talking to make you think he's intelligent. So then the next thing he tells you, you believe. Because the question was about the correction or something about the hobby. He goes off and he argues that have you bought Bitcoin or you invest in the hobby, you'd make more money in the hobby. And that is such a misleading comment to make. It is so dangerously misleading. Okay, Bitcoin is one finite, tangible item that can be exchanged on a public world, right? Saying sports cards could be so many different things. You could have bought a lot of Deshaun Watsons in the last few years and lost a lot of money. Or you could have bought a lot of, you know, somebody else. It's so misleading for him to say that. And that's what bothers me, the way he words things. He talks about market cap, the way he wants to sound intelligent. Let's just be honest, man. It's a hobby, guys. It's a hobby. People can make money off it. People can make money off of dogs, right? I've got dogs. I love my dogs. I could sell and breed dogs. You know, am I a dog investor now? You know, are all dogs worth, do all dogs have a market cap now? It's these asinine associations that some people make that I don't like because they really are leaders in our hobby. Instead of being leaders to a positive, I think they're leaders that are decaying what could be positive, if that makes sense.
Yeah.